So one of the topics that I think that is under discussed is travel time. I think that it's under discussed and underappreciated by a significant portion of the community. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that and illustrate what I'm trying to say by using this footage here, which is kind of stitched together to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to be like to travel between, say, worlds like Hurston and Crusader or other worlds as they're brought into the game. Basically, a 12-minute flight. Now, let me first start by saying that it's no secret that I'm not a fan of this system. It's really no secret at all that I am not a fan of this system. And it's not because I think, oh, it's ugly or blah, blah, blah. I'm not a fan of this system because even though you're flying your ship, you're not really flying your ship. You're just kind of watching the stars go by, right? Whereas, let's say a game like Elite Dangerous, you're constantly having to manipulate the speed of your ship, or at least maintain some semblance of control over your vessel to make sure that you don't overshoot, but to still keep your speed up to a certain point so that you get there at a decent frame of time, you know, that you're not just sitting there going, well, it'll take me 6 months to get from this station to this station, or I can crank it up and I can get there maybe like in 60 seconds, but a little too much and I might overshoot, that sort of thing. I like that idea. I like that system. I like the free warping aspect of Elite Dangerous. It's one of the better aspects of the game. It was something that took me a little bit of getting used to, but I really started to appreciate that system when I was playing Elite. I enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed it. And I thought it was a good system. Now, within the boundaries of Star Citizen, though, I think that Star Citizen it presents you with a problem. And the problem is that when you're traveling these long distances between worlds, between planets, or just between whatever it's going to be, a jump gate or a wormhole, however they're going to officially, name it. When you're traveling between these spaces, you're going for a long period of time, but you're not actually in control of your ship. You're not actually flying your ship. You're more or less just kind of, watching the stars go by. Now, you might say, well, you can get up out of your ship. Maybe they'll make it so you can, like that little arcade machine in Rudo's shop on Grim Hex. Maybe you can have one of those in the cafeteria of your Caterpillar, and you can just go down there and you can play some Space Invaders or some Galaga, and just do that while you wait for the trip to, for this distance to be traveled. But I mean, realistically, what happens if you get interdicted and you're not at the controls? Now, with a ship like the Caterpillar, it's not that horrible. You don't have that far to run to get to the cockpit, but some of these other ships, you have a pretty convoluted series of passageways to get to the nerve center of your ship, to the pilot's seat or the captain's chair, before you can assess the situation and see what's going on. And so that could increase your level of vulnerability. So it kind of makes more sense to sit in the captain's chair, at least in the pilot's seat, but at the same time, what are you really doing when you're there? Well, you're just watching the stars go by. So what I would like to do with this video is I'd like to suggest a few improvements to quantum travel. Obviously, taking the entire system, such as it has been designed, they're building fueling stations, they're doing all this stuff, sitting there and saying, scrap it, page one rewrite. Don't really think that is in the cards. Obviously, with the flight system itself getting a major overhaul when you're not in quantum, asking for the same in quantum and possibly changing the entire structure of the game that they're developing is probably not not something that they're going to entertain. But here's some suggestions that I would like to make to improve the livability and the usability of the quantum system. Suggestion number one: unlike Elite Dangerous, where you're manipulating throttle, I think that you should be able to manipulate fuel consumption, so that if you're using less fuel, you can get further out. If you're working to lower your fuel consumption in some way or another, that you can actually take your ship further and you can get much more range out of your fuel tanks, though the trip may take longer. And I'm not talking about something where you're actively, trying to basically almost like play a game in Tetris or something like that, where you're in a constant contest to have to maintain this low rate of fuel consumption, but something where you can just dial down the fuel consumption, maybe dial down the overall quantum speed. Takes longer, but you go further and you use up less fuel. Something like that. Something that brings a little bit of basic activity into the quantum system, other than boom, you're in quantum and you just go to your destination. Number two, coasting and interdiction. Interdiction, it's obvious, once again, that I am not a fan of the interdiction system, the idea of an interdiction field that just snags whatever flies through it. I don't like a sit and wait mechanic. I don't like a one-touch solution mechanic. What I would rather see is if someone's out there and they've got an interdiction field up on your travel route, you should be able to detect that interdiction field before you hit it. You should be able to detect it and be able to reach over, flick off your quantum drive, and coast through that interdiction field as you start to decelerate out of quantum. And as soon as you leave the interdiction field, flick the quantum drive back on. And if you, however they would want to arrange that mechanic, if you do it in the right way, you can actually pass through an interdiction field, but you have to be on your toes and you have to be paying attention. Something that makes it kind of like, if you're on top of your game, if you're really trying, if you know what you're doing, you're going to be rewarded for that. Something that brings a little bit more activity into quantum. So it's something that if you, sort of like, once again, like Elite Dangerous, if you get interdicted, but you're able to maneuver your ship and kind of keep your, your pipper in that little blue circle as it's kind of filling up, you can escape from an interdiction. Same sort of idea, but more around the idea of maybe shutting off your quantum drive so it doesn't get disrupted, and then turning it back on before you lose so much speed that you actually drop out of quantum. Something like that is something that I would definitely like to see. My third and final suggestion would be some piece of hardware. Obviously, maybe not something that's initially available on all ships. Maybe it's a module that you have to go purchase at certain specialty retailers, whatever, but a certain piece of hardware that you can at least put on your ship that allows you to open up the map and pick a point in that star system that isn't attached to something else. Any random point within that area of a star system, you're responsible for figuring out if you have enough fuel to get there and enough fuel to get back. That's all on you. But it allows you to just go out and travel into the deep dark of space and go to wherever you want to go in that star system, so long as you have the fuel. Maybe even find some stuff that's tucked away or hidden out there, something that maybe you can't immediately see on scanners. Use that as a big area or a big field where you can put maybe like asteroids or planetoids or something that's orbiting around whatever star system, the star in the star system that you're in, that you can go and maybe even build a little homestead on that asteroid that nobody knows about or something like that. Like you may get a ship all rigged up with extra fuel tanks and extra range, and you can go way out there and maybe you find an asteroid where no one would normally be looking for it, and you can set up your own little base there, something like that. That is something that I would like to see, but the beginnings of that would be, even if you have to jump through a few hoops to get it, the basic availability of some type of free warping system within a star system. So even in the hands of a very, a very basic player, it would allow them to kind of pick within the limits of that reality where they wanted to come out of warp around a planet. If they wanted to say, oh, I want to try and get it so that I'm going to drop right out 60 kilometers above Shubin mining station on Yela, or I want to drop out 100,000 kilometers away from this moon, or I want to just skirt the asteroid field around Yela and come out right about here, right where Grim Hex should be when I get there. That sort of thing. That sort of gameplay that allows a sophisticated player, someone who's really, really wanting to get really in deep with the system and the way the different objects rotate around the planets and the way the planets rotate, so that if they're really on top of their game, they can drop themselves right where they need to be. Or, for the regular player who doesn't want to bother with all that, then they can just hit all the normal nav points and just do things as intended. But if you really want to get into it deep, there's depth, and there's things that you can explore within the quantum system that don't just limit you to just setting destinations and however much fuel you have. That's as far as you can go. Things that let you actively participate in the quantum experience and not just kind of watch the stars float by. So yeah, that would be the three main things that I would like to see added to the quantum system that we currently have. Once again, these are just suggestions though. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.